Good afternoon, Cory. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks, Paul. Still morning here in Toronto, Canada for
Yes,
another 20 minutes, but yeah, good
I was
afternoon.
about to say that because you're just coming up to the midday, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Brilliant. And have you had a busy one this morning?
It has been. You know how Monday mornings are, always busy, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I started doing my interviews on a Monday afternoon for my sins. Rush, rush, rush in the morning, knowing I've got this interview to do in the afternoon. So
Yeah.
the pressure's on always. So what's the weather doing there at the moment?
A little cool. We were actually coming off a stretch of beautiful weather here in Canada. Spring showed its face for the first time. So the last 4 or 5 days we've had you know, more than 20 degrees centigrade and
Wow.
sunny days. But this is very typical of Canadian spring. Spring shows its face for a couple days, just gives us a taste. And then we get a bit of a cold snap again, which we're at today, about 6 or 7 degrees Celsius today. We might even see one more light dusting of snow rather, before spring really shows its face for good. So yeah.
And is this typical weather for you guys over there?
It is, yeah. The last few days, as I said, have been warmer than typical, but that's also typical. Just that little
Yeah,
taste of
yeah.
it first. So yeah, it's pretty typical
A little
Canadian weather.
teaser, a little
Yeah,
teaser.
right, right.
So, Cory, we've met through an acquaintance, Brian, who's Brian Scott, who was my famous episode #1. I hope you
Right.
listened to the episode. And so Brian reached out to me and said, "Look, I need to be speaking to Cory. He's doing some really great things in Canada, and he's sort of stretching out across the world." So, and obviously we've got LinkedIn commonality. So I know about yourself. And for the benefit of our audience, could you give us some background story about yourself and your origin story?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my origin story is that, I always wanted to be a salesman. I was always attracted to being in sales. And so, kind of fresh out of college, I went into financial services sales. I was always, involved in sports growing up. So that sort of competitive nature inside of me, that wanting to compete and wanting to keep score, drove me to that. So I started off in financial services sales, and about 4 or 5 years of that realized that banking wasn't the industry I saw myself in for the rest of my career. And kind of by accident ended up in construction sales. Knew an acquaintance of an acquaintance. We're looking for a sales rep. And so I found myself by accident in the construction industry and quickly fell in love with it and realized that this was where I was meant to be. So, I started off my career very, very early on selling drywall and associated material that goes along with drywall, insulation and commercial ceilings and steel studs and that sort of thing. And I did that for several years, about 7, 8 years, and then transitioned into a different role, still in construction, but selling wholesale electrical, so wire and cable, from little tiny wires up to the great big power lines and fiber optic cable and everything in between. And really honed my skills managing a sales team in that role, and just sort of continued to progress, as a salesperson. And always had success and always kind of enjoyed what I did, but never had that part of my career where I was really passionate about what I was doing and really woke up excited to get out of bed and to do to go sell whatever I was selling every day. And about 2.5 years ago, again a little bit by chance, I had this opportunity come across my desk to lead the sales charge here for this company, Mitrex, who I work for now. And we'll talk more about what we do here, but essentially our company manufactures building integrated photovoltaics, building integrated solar products, primarily solar cladding and solar railings. And firstly, from a business standpoint, renewable energy, sustainable products, this is the direction that all the momentum of the industry is taking us towards. And really excited me to think about being in on the ground floor at a company that was bringing a revolutionary product to the market. And more on the personal side of things for me, not just a revolutionary product that should change the industry and change the market, but also a product that's the right thing to do. Green energy, sustainable technology, something that's, genuinely going to make the world a better place. And, not to be too cliche, but I have two small children at home, and it was important for me that what I'm doing for the rest of my career is leaving a better world behind for my kids in the future.
Do you think this has been your calling as such, the solar? Is there a connection there?
I don't know if I'd say that it's necessarily my calling, but what I will say is I enjoy it tremendously since being here. And our company is a solar company, but first and foremost a construction products manufacturer, and really that's where my background is, and that's where my strengths lend to. And of course, we have a solar integrated product line that we bring to the market. And again, I'm still learning a lot about solar, and have learned a lot over the last 2 years, but I certainly enjoy it, and I really feel passionately about it. And that sort of gap that I was hoping to fill by moving to a company like this certainly has been filled to this point so far.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it, when you're getting up every morning and you're going to do something that you really, really care about, you're passionate about. It really does.
Yeah, it certainly does. And even, on weekends, recreationally talking with friends and people that I meet, it's so much more fun to tell them, when they ask you, what do you do for a living, to really talk to them about something you're passionate about.
You mentioned about being competitive. Are you now in a competitive world, do you think, still with this solar?
I mean, it's always competitive. There's always some level of competitive nature to what I'm doing. The way that it's competitive maybe changes. For example, in my previous parts of my career, selling drywall or selling electrical wire, the competition was, competing against other people selling the exact same thing in the exact same market. And the competition is over relationship and price and solutions and that sort of thing. The competition today is a little different for me, because I'm not necessarily competing against, apples to apples, head to head competitors with the exact same products. The competition today is bringing a new technology and a new way of thinking to the industry. Construction and buildings in general are a lot of, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've had success, and this is the way we're going to continue doing it. And to get people to change their mindset about how to build buildings and how they should be done, and to completely change, the way that they're designed and the way that they're going to generate energy for themselves is really the competition now, competing against the status quo, so to speak, and getting people in the industry to change the way that they think and the way they build buildings.
I agree with you there. And one thing I want to pick up on it's I like the way you've maintained. You've got the drywall stuff that you're doing, which is similar to cladding, and then you went on to doing the cables and the electrical side of it, and now you've brought that all together, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I'd love to say that was by design, but but I'd be lying. But
It's interesting to see how your career's evolved, because you've got the expertise in both sides, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. I do. And as I said, slowly but surely trying to add solar expertise to the list as well.
Yeah. So I've seen your products, and you showed me a glimpse of some of the stuff that you can do, which is quite unique. I think this is quite sort of challenging, really. You've got, as you said, you've got a new technology there, and I think it's quite radical what you're trying to achieve. So for the benefit of our audience here, it'd be interesting to see what you are trying to achieve without me giving away too much here.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, really high level, it's building integrated photovoltaics. So buildings that can generate their own energy through solar technology, but beyond the traditional solar space. So, when you talk to people about solar on buildings, right away they think about panels on the roof.
Yeah.
And those are fantastic and great, and we still love rooftop solar technology, but our company really focuses on solar technology that's integrated into the building. So the background of our company is as a solar panel as a cladding panel manufacturer. We manufactured cladding panels and have done so for more than 25 years, and evolved our existing product line to include one that has solar cells. So, it's really a unique advantage when we bring a building integrated solar product to the market that, we're not a solar company trying to bring a solar cladding panel to the market. We're a cladding and facades company that's already well versed in this industry, and we actually do our own installations here in Canada as well. So we're also installation contractors. So, we understand the needs and understand the pain points of installing cladding on buildings, and really brought a product to market that integrates solar into that. So, the beautiful thing about our product is that it's fully customizable. So really, in a nutshell, we bring the ability for building developers and builders to clad entire buildings with solar panels that don't look like solar panels. They literally can look like anything, any color, any sort of texture, and now maximizing the space of the building, right? I tell people all the time, a 10-story building and a 50-story building has the exact same size roof. And so there's only so many solar panels you can fit on there, but now we can maximize the entire facades of buildings. We also do a solar integrated balcony railing product. So now you start talking about all the square footages on a building facade as well as balcony railings, and it becomes a much larger scale now how much these buildings can generate their own solar energy to offset their draw from fossil fuel type resources.
And I like the point that it can be camouflaged. I think planning in the UK is we put a big stop against solar going on certain roofs, certain walls, as we're talking here, because it doesn't look right. I'm doing a big project in London at the moment, and the architects are getting involved with it, and the look and feel of this project's trying to overtake really what the application can do and the functionality of it. But you'll be able to match that. You'll be able to blend that into exactly how they want it, won't you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. If the building was designed to look like it has gray and black metal panels on it, we just offset those gray and black metal panels with gray and black panels that have PV integrated into them, and to a glance, to the first sight, it looks exactly the same. You can't even tell that there's solar panels cladding the building. And the real beauty of that is a truly integrated material. So it's offsetting, it's displacing another building material, as opposed to rooftop solar panels are always something you're adding to the building. Yeah. Again, I'll say it again, it's truly integrated into the facade of the building.
And the wording you used for me the other week was camouflage. And I like the way it camouflages the solar panel itself, and the building, and brings it to life, doesn't it? The interesting point here, you mentioned to me as well that you don't just have to do the front or the south facing, do you? You've got studies where you've done the whole complete building.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, the south facade of a building is going to generate the most solar energy. But in North America, specifically in the United States, and coming very soon in Canada, there's really significant tax incentives to use solar products on buildings. So what ends up happening is integrating solar cladding onto a building ends up, at the end of the day, oftentimes coming out equal as far as the cost of whatever the alternate cladding material would be. So, if we're comparing head to head to like a metal panel or something like that, and you displace that metal panel with a BIPV cladding panel, again, when you figure out the cost per square foot, quite often it's very, very close to the exact same cost to do BIPV or metal. So, if that's the case, and then we start looking at a building and saying, well, does it make sense to have solar cladding on the north side? The north side does generate some electricity from ambient light and reflected light. Usually it's about 25 or 30% of what you're going to get from your south facade. Mm-hmm. But, the equation and the question that always ends up coming up is that if it's going to cost the same to install solar cladding on the north facade as it would an alternate material, why not use solar cladding on the north side? One, you're maintaining that consistency and continuity of the finish of your building all the way around on all four sides. But again, if you're still even getting 25 or 30% of what you're getting from the south facade, that's certainly better than the alternative, which is zero, right?
Yeah. And then what about life cycle of, say, traditional cladding compared to life cycle of a solar application?
I mean, if you're comparing it just to other cladding as a building material, the life cycle is, it's very long. In fact, we have a lifetime guarantee on our panels as far as a building material goes. When you talk about it as a solar panel, it's the same as all the rooftop solar panels that you see on the market today. We guarantee 80% efficiency after 25 years as part of our warranty. But like every other solar panel, it's going to continue to lose, small amounts of efficiency over time, but still should be generating some electricity 40, 50, 60 years into the future. And again, as far as the building material goes, it should outlast the building that it's on.
And have we got any limitations with color?
We don't. Color, pictures, designs, we can get very intricate as to the design and the pattern and that sort of thing. Now, one thing I will mention is that, the color on the face of the panels does affect the efficiency of the panels. So,
Yeah.
If you think about it, there's a piece of tempered glass in front of the solar cells. So whatever we customize that tempered glass with does affect the efficiency a little bit. For example, if we're using an all white panel that looks like an all white metal panel on the building, it's going to block some of the light coming through and hitting those solar cells. So we do lose some efficiency. But again, I always go back to the reference of, even an inefficient solar cladding panel, maybe running at 9 or 10% efficiency is still far, far better than the alternate, which is 0. And that's sort of the worst case scenario, like an all white panel or something like that. As we go up to darker colors, there's less and less impedance of that light coming through and hitting the solar cells. So as we use, darker tones, the panels become much, much more efficient. And of course, there's always the factor that we're covering much more square footage than we would if we were just using the roof, right? So we're always working with our clients and developers that are designing buildings to find that nice balance between aesthetics and performance.
And you cheekily presented me with a logo that you wanted to put on a particular building, didn't you? Which made me smile. And I couldn't believe the fact that you was going to turn that into a solar panel. Well, it's quite impressive. So the design of it, not only the color, but the design of it is pretty much unlimited as well, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, we did a project for a church here in Toronto, and they wanted to integrate some of their signage into the solar cladding directly, and they had a photograph of like the patron saint of their church, right? And wow. So we were literally able to take that artwork and place it right onto the solar cladding panel. So, it's a very intricate, very detailed picture of this saint, but also is generating solar energy from that exact same surface.
Do you think the opportunities going forward now are going to be, a lot of organizations are on having to develop a net zero pathway. And if you think, all we can put is solar on our roof, but now we can go around the building as well as. So do you think the opportunity is going to be significant going forward?
I believe so, yes, as we continue to travel towards net zero being the norm, right? I don't think that's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when that becomes standard code. And buildings that can generate as much of their own energy are going to be at a premium in the future. And honestly, if you ask me, I believe that this is just going to become part of the code, and it's just going to become part of the way that buildings are built going into the future.
So we're talking about doing the side of the buildings and obviously the roof. What about on flat surfaces like pathways and things? I've seen sort of conceptual where someone's put solar in the pathway and the road leading up to the building. Can that be done?
Certainly can be done. Yes. It's not something that our company does. I'll say it's not something our company does yet. We have a large and ambitious R&D department that's looking at new technology all the time. But as I stated, we're not there yet, and our background is in cladding and our background is in facades. So naturally, our first foray into solar being in that industry where our background already is makes a lot of sense, and it's really where our primary focus is today.
Yeah. Where do you think your challenges are going forward?
I mean, this one's really easy. The biggest challenge is something that I've already alluded to. It's changing the minds and changing the status quo, right? And the biggest obstacle we have today is speaking to developers who love the concept, love the value proposition, love the photographs and the renderings that we can do with our products and everything like that. And without fail, almost every time they say, well, where's the closest project here where we can go see it in real life? And up till now, there's only been a couple of those, or for a while there was none, right? It was all still conceptual or just mock-ups. And some of the first projects are being completed today, but that really is our biggest challenge is just changing the status quo and changing the mindset of building developers that, hey, my building should be generating a good portion of its own electricity internally, and this is how. That's definitely the biggest challenge today.
Yeah. So it's not just developing new buildings, is it? We can retrofit existing ones, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're a facades company, we have a lot of solutions, not just products, right? So a lot of times older buildings need to be retrofitted anyways, old brick facades that are falling apart, or air leakage or water leakage, or quite simply, buildings that are looking to become more efficient by adding waterproofing and air barriers and adding insulation and that sort of thing. So, retrofit projects that are doing this type of work anyways, make absolute perfect sense. In fact, it becomes almost a no-brainer from a financial standpoint if they're going to build out some exterior insulation and do some retrofitting on the facade to add solar cladding on there and start generating their own electricity for the building too. Yeah, retrofit is a fantastic application.
Right. And currently obviously Canada's your main base as such. What other countries are you slowly evolving and project wise?
Yeah, most of our work and most of our opportunity today lies in the United States. I mean, just sheerly by proximity, they're our next door neighbor, but also the size of that market. So the most opportunities are coming from the United States, primarily from markets like New York, where they have this local law 97 that's impending. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but energy law that's going to penalize buildings that are energy inefficient. So we're getting a lot of attention from the New York City market, as well as places like California, where solar is mandated on a lot of projects, almost all new projects, I believe now today. And so, those buildings looking for opportunities and ways to meet these requirements that are being set on them to have certain sizes of solar arrays on their buildings. And some of them are finding challenges, right? Like they may have a mandate of setting, X number of kilowatts on their building, and they can't fit that much on the roof. So
Yeah.
starting to come up with other solutions of how we can meet that minimum requirement. A solution like ours, the solar cladding or solar railings, really becomes a viable solution. So, most is in the United States today. Of course, there's a lot of opportunity here in Canada, specifically in the Greater Toronto area where I am. It's our natural market, it's our backyard. So there's obviously a lot happening here too. But we have a lot of inquiries internationally as well. I mean, there's a lot of countries in Europe and the Middle East and South America that really are putting a focus on doing whatever they can to become energy independent, and generating solar energy is one of the best ways to get there. And a lot of, inquiries and a lot of questions about, how products like ours can help these places gain that energy independence.
I've got some buildings in the UK I've been looking at regarding net zero. We've been looking at putting solar on the roof, and it just tickles it. It doesn't really. It's going to put people under a lot of pressure if they can't put solar anywhere else or any other resource. So I can see the opportunities in the UK alone, significant regarding that. But it's that mindset, isn't it? Do I want some solar on the roof and some on my walls, or it's just getting over that curb. It's like all technologies, though, isn't it? We've been here before with solar in the first place. Do I want solar on my roof or not? It's that balance, isn't it? What's it going to give me? But the more solar we get on that building, the more we could possibly export into batteries. And then we're really talking, because when it's not sunny, we can then be providing the battery can be providing the electricity at night. So it does start to add up, doesn't it? Really, what we're trying to achieve here, I think.
Yeah, it does. It adds up very, very quickly. And, as we continue to evolve, as an industry and as a world, really, these green energy generating technologies are becoming more and more important, and it's happening very, very quickly.
Do you think that you would start collaborating with people in the battery world and start expanding that way as well? What's the future look like? That should have been my question, really. What does the future look like for your organization, do you think?
Well, I mean, our focus really is on generating the electricity. So, building out systems that make sense for every building that our product is on, it is something that we do. So we certainly collaborate with battery manufacturers, as well as other solar equipment manufacturers, inverters and combiners and these sorts of things. Our panels are agnostic; they work with everybody's technology. So whether we'll make that jump into battery technology ourselves down the road, I'm not sure if that will happen. But today, again, the primary focus for us is on generating electricity and then collaborating with other industry specialists on building overall systems that make the most sense for the buildings that we're implementing our technology on.
Yeah. Out of interest, I was interested to know, when you look at the area, when you're putting your cladding up on the walls and combined with solar, what percentage of that panel is solar and what percentage of that is material that's acting as the fabric? Is there a percentage? I'm just intrigued to know what that is.
Well, I mean, the overall makeup of the panel, the panel structure is an aluminum honeycomb, which is the same structure that we've used for a long, long time in our non-solar products. So aluminum honeycomb, but then the rest of the panel is just solar cells and a piece of customized tempered glass. And so, on the face, on the surface of that panel, it's 100% solar. Every square centimeter of that is covered up by solar cells. So, but the overall composition of it is primarily the aluminum honeycomb. That's where the building material side of it comes in, and that's where the structure of the panel comes from, and the the wind load rating and the fire rating and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And where can we see some case studies on this now?
Well, case studies are on our website, mitrex.com. Completed projects today are primarily in the Toronto area. So, people in Canada or people traveling to Canada have some live projects that they can come see. And we have more and more of those coming. Eastern Canada, more in downtown Toronto coming this year. We have our first projects in the U.S. starting later this year. First one is going to be in Jersey City, right across the Hudson River from Manhattan. And so, we have some more pending projects in further south in the United States and California and that sort of thing. So there's more and more coming as we speak. We have one completed project in Dubai actually today too. So
is that completed now, the Dubai one?
It is, yeah. So there's a building in Dubai you can see. But case studies, as I said, are available on our website, and you can see what size those projects are and what the efficiency of the panels. The good thing is that all the different projects that we have are some different patterns and some different colors, so you can really see the difference in efficiency per square foot based on what finishes on those panels.
Yeah. Well, Cory, I was just thinking about sort of, you mentioned about the differences between the Canada, and when we was talking in the beginning, you were saying about the spring, and I'm thinking, well, that's pretty much what the UK's got. So it's pretty similar, isn't it, climate wise? It does get very cold in Canada, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar for sure. I'm in Toronto, so I mean, we have more mild climate than some more northern parts of Canada, especially out in Western Canada, in Alberta, Edmonton, and Calgary, places like Winnipeg, that sort of thing. They certainly get much more severe winters than we do here, but we still have typical Canadian winters here, snow and freezing and ice and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, Cory, it's come to that time of the interview that I'd like to just put you on the spot. You have been on the spot because you did tell me right at the beginning you've never done a podcast. So well done for that. You're a natural, obviously. So is there anything that you can give back to our industry today as a takeaway for our listeners or the experts that are listening to today?
I mean, really the biggest takeaway that I would give is that, buildings should be considered a source of energy and not just a place that uses energy, right? And buildings should always be thinking about energy independence and, whether it's through other technologies like geothermal or wind or of course, solar, just that change of mindset that specifically buildings and construction. Look, there's a statistic that says more than 40% of CO2 emissions in the world come from buildings and building construction. So if we can change that part of our world, it's significant, and will make a big impact on the overall global CO2 emissions and global environment and climate. So, really just, again, changing that mindset of buildings and developers that, energy can be generated internally and can be used on site, and even supplemented to grids and into battery storage, like you said, and really, it makes a lot of sense for buildings to be measuring that consumption and measuring that energy production, and constantly working towards that net zero status. Buildings being net zero isn't that big of a mountain to overcome. And I know in the industry, it really seems like it is. But when you sit down with experts and you sit down with people who understand technology and understand what's available out there, it's not far-fetched that net zero should be the norm, and that should happen very, very quickly.
Yeah. And you mentioned this before and just now about educating the developers. I think there's three lots of people we need to educate. We need to educate the experts, people like myself that are out there looking for solutions to get to net zero. And, I really appreciate you pushing me to meet with you to understand what you've got to offer here, because I think it's very radical and very sort of forward thinking what we're doing here. So there's the experts, but more importantly, it's the user, it's the end user, the owner of these properties. If we can get everyone in that same space, really analysing that and sort of on that side, I think that will make the big difference. It's dragging everyone along, isn't it? Unfortunately, and you guys being leading edge and out there on the frontier, the coalface, as I call it, excuse the pun, but it's on the coalface, chipping away at them ideas and them solutions. You've got a big task on your hand, and I'm hoping today is going to help that task with, sharing that knowledge to other people that listen to this.
Yeah, I hope so too. And, people like you in the industry are people that are very important to people like us, right? We can spread the good word, so to speak, only so much, right? But other industry experts and people that others listen to and that others respect are obviously, important for us to get the word out there and to start to change that mindset all around the world.
Well, Cory, thank you for your time today. I'm really excited about your technology. I've already been eyeing up some areas where we could sort of push that into, just sort of give a different dimension to what we're looking at. I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Brilliant. And then lastly, Cory, you and your family stay safe in these times.
I appreciate it. Thanks. And same to you.